In C, a function can only return one value. This is done with a return statement. The type in the function header and in the function prototype is the type of value that the function returns. Functions that return use the call by value method of passing arguments to the function. Typically, these are values that the function is going to need to perform its calculation when it's calculating and returning the value. Here's the general form of a function definition for a function that returns one value. So first of all, in the function header, we have the type of value that the function returns, then the name of the function and the parameter declarations, then the variable declarations if we have any local variables in the function, then the statements in the body, and eventually in the statements in the body of the function, we're going to return a value of the type that is listed in the header. So we have a return statement that returns a value of this type that we give in the function header. So let's take a look at an example of a function that calculates and returns one value. So in the main function, we're going to have one float variable for the side of a square, and I'm going to initialize that to 3.3, and then I'm going to call this function square area and pass to it the value of side. So the value of side gets passed to the parameter one side. The function is going to calculate the square of that, one side times one side, and return that value. So 3.3 times 3.3 is 10.89, and the function is going to return that value here to be the value that is going to be printed. The area is, and then 10.89. So in the program organization, we include the standard I/O header file. Then we have the function prototype. So that's the type of value that the function returns, which is float. The name of the function is square area, and the type of the parameter, which in this case is float. Then we have the main function that includes a call to the square area function, and then we have the entire function definition. Now in this case it's a really simple function. All it needs to do is just return and then the result of the expression one side squared or one side times itself. So in this case we only have the return statement, but we can certainly have functions that would have a lot of other statements in here in the body that culminates in returning the value. And again, the type here is the type of value that the function returns, which in this case is a float. So another example would be a rectangle area. To calculate the area of a rectangle, we'd need to pass two things. We'd need to pass the length and the width. So when we call a function, let's say, for example, named rect area, we would pass two numbers to it for the length and the width. So the function header would have two parameters separated by a comma. So we'd have float length and float width. In this case, the function would also return a float. And the function prototype would have, instead of the declarations, just the type list. So just the types of the two parameters. So the types of the input parameters do not necessarily have anything to do with the type of the value that is returned. So for example, we could have a function to which we're passing two arguments, a character and a float, and the function is somehow using them to calculate and return an integer. So again, there's no correspondence between the types of the input parameters that we're passing to the function and the type of value that the function returns.